Mark Jones, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I am doing good. I needed just a minute to find this one slide that I wanted to show. So we're starting 3 minutes late.
All
Big
good.
picture. What's the energy out there feeling like right now?
I think it's really quiet right now, which is it's interesting because I think people are just assuming it's because interest rates went up, but what people are forgetting is it's over 90 degrees in Atlanta, and usually that doesn't happen until after 4th of July and closer to August.
Yep.
So that's one reason it's slow because people don't like looking at
Yep.
property in the heat. And the other reason is last weekend or the previous weekend was a holiday weekend. So usually between Father's Day and 4th of July, it's usually dead.
Yeah. I talked to an agent this morning that put a listing on the market over the weekend and was like geared up, ready to go sell this thing. And like it didn't show over the weekend. And
Right.
he's like panicked. And I'm like, slow down.
Yeah.
Welcome to the days of it does sometimes take 30 days to sell a listing.
Right. I think,
Uh,
those of us who've been in the market a while, understand that and have some perspective. But I was talking with one of our agents the other day, one of our top agents, and she's only been in real estate since like 2015. So she's never seen a down market. She's never seen it where it takes a lot longer to get things under contract. So just, 1 or 2 days of no activity
yeah.
on our new listing feels like an eternity, but it's not.
Yeah. I just want to throw it out there. Like it's gonna feel different. People are gonna get nervous.
Hmm.
And here, this is when you need to lean into us. This is when you need to lean into this call and go, okay, they're telling me on this call it's pretty normal, or lean into team meeting where the top agents are talking about, hey, here's the perspective. Because I know the more narrow my focus gets around some kind of fear, the
Hmm.
more exasperated it becomes. But if I can widen my focus and listen to other people's perspectives, kind of tends to alleviate the fear for the most part. But data does that too. So, Mark, we should jump into the data here.
Let's do it.
All right. So, here's the thing. Right now, there's 886 active listings as of this morning, thanks to our amazing cyberbacker, Mr. Steven. Um, and that's a good number. Like, that's the most houses Fulton County's had active in inventory in a long time, right?
Right.
Um, However, there's 328 pendings, 137 active under contract, 325 closings. What do you make of that?
I mean, it's definitely starting to slow down a little bit. But like I said, a lot of that's seasonal and weather related, and having two holidays in a row. Like there's just a sort of a confluence of events. So I'm trying not to read too much into it at this point
Nope.
because in a normal market, between Father's Day and 4th of July is usually slow. It picks up a little bit after that, but generally summer is slow. So it's going to not be as red hot. And on top of that, you throw in higher interest rates, and it's going to put a little bit of water on the and dampen things down a little bit.
There you go. So DeKalb County's got 515 active listings, 228 pending, and 217 closings. So certainly a slower on the closing number, but I never make inference off 1 week, of course.
Right.
Cobb County 567 active inventory, 250 pending, 243 closing. Once again, slower number, but I'm not really concerned about it. But here's where I want to talk about. So we put out a shift video last week, and some offices put it out last week. I think some are putting it out this week.
Right.
We were talking about this concept to hold the line in the shift book, and it basically says when the market contracts, hold your market share, and that's holding the line. That's success in a contracting market. But if you see this label here, it talks about sales activity, or you could replace that with closings,
Hmm.
homes sold, right? So the concept is homes sold here, contract, less homes sold here, contract, less homes sold here. And that's kind of how they're defining a shift. And then the opportunity of it is, how do you maintain your market share? If I go here, I'm not sure I could show that yet.
Right.
Like, I don't see homes sold in Fulton County. Maybe we had a month of early June in the 400 range, and now we're in the 300 range. But I've seen 300s. We had 227 in May.
Right.
It certainly is not necessarily a drastic rollback on closings in Fulton County. You
Right.
get out to DeKalb County, I'm not seeing a drastic rollback of closings. Another way to look at this, Mark, is you see the yellow line are the closings. So obviously it bounces around a lot, but
Right.
for the most part, we haven't taken a nosedive in that yellow line.
Right.
Looking at DeKalb County, hadn't taken a nosedive in the yellow line. Cobb County, pretty consistent. Actually, it looks like the yellow line's almost up in Cobb County.
Mm-hmm.
So get over to Gwinnett, and I like to stay. Everybody can log into this and look at their own local market at, if you go to therealestatestats.com. But the big markets tend to give us better outlook just because of the sheer number of data.
Right.
I'm not seeing it, Mark. I mean, I
No.
know every conversation I'm having, somebody is saying, hey, it's different. Listing went on the market. I didn't show it over the weekend, or man, I may have to reduce my price. But I think there's two conversations going on here. It's feeling different, but I don't know that we're necessarily selling less houses right now.
Right.
And maybe that's a precursor of what's to come, but I don't see it on paper.
Yeah,
Talk to
and the activity, closings, from last week went under contract a month ago, right? And the market was a little different a month ago. So I think it'll be a while before we see if the market is truly slowing down. It's going to take a couple of weeks for us to see that data, close to a month.
Agreed.
And the other thing is, my takeaway from all this is looking at how that blue line on every single county is growing, and the trajectory is more listing inventory, right? So that's, to me, is the good news. We've been complaining for 2 years that there's not enough inventory, probably longer than that. And but definitely since COVID, it's been an extreme shortage of inventory, and we're starting to see things on the market now that and not go up within like the first 24 hours. So there's more to choose from, which is great news for buyers
100%.
and buyers agents.
Always looking for the opportunity in everything. And you should be training your mind as well, as no matter what the market gives us, there's always an opportunity, right?
Right.
And I had a conversation yesterday. I said, I could ask anybody a question like, hey, what area is hopping right now? And you could say, pick an area, Mark.
Yeah, like Westview.
Westview, West Midtown, whatever, right? The question is, what was it 10 years ago? And it
Right.
probably wasn't hopping like it is today.
Right.
But somebody 10 years ago knew the development was going there.
Yep.
So the question is, where is the hot market going to be 10 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
And in the next 18 months, we should be buying in that market with hopefully having the financial capability of holding it for 8 years.
Right.
And getting in when the market's down and before the values skyrocket. So
Agreed.
where is that? Well, it's different in different parts of the city, of course. But you're not buying. Opportunity is not what's here today. That was yesterday's opportunity. Opportunity is what's here today for tomorrow.
Right.
And I think there will always be opportunity. And there is active inventory coming up, which tells me not that there's going to be deals, but I'm not going to have to kill myself to get into houses here in the near future.
Right.
Which is
there's more
cool.
supply, prices don't accelerate as quickly, which is, again, not a bad thing because 20% a year is not sustainable, right? So I really think it's actually a very good thing for the market, and definitely a good thing for buyers that inventory is growing.
Yep. Well, let me jump over here to a different chart. So we talked about this last month or last week with the inflation numbers, and we
Mm-hmm.
were all excited because inflation came down a little bit.
Right.
And, the government's goal is to fix this number. That's the big goal right now. And what that means is they're cranking these interest rates to try to pull inflation down. And you understand the federal government really only has two ways they can control the economy. One is the cost of money, i.e., interest rate,
Right.
or the other one is their laws around monetary policy.
Right.
Um, well, what's happened is it went back up, and this is a peak high for inflation we're at right now. And
Mm-hmm.
come on, we all live in the same city, so we all feel it the same way, whether it's gas or a loaf of bread or whatever you feel the pain around.
Right.
But what this tells me, Mark, is there's more to come.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We
We're
know
on the
that.
front end of this for sure.
Yeah. And Gary made comment last week with his top 200. He said, you have to understand two things. He said it takes 18 to 36 months to ride out a down economic cycle. So if we're in it now, it's probably a year and a half of this before we're out of it.
Right. I think the
But
longest
I
one
don't
in
even know
history
that
was
we're in it, to be honest. We're just seeing weird economic data. But then the second part of that is there's an incredible recovery of about 8 years on the backside of that. So if
right.
you can weather this storm, there's explosive growth on the backside of all this. So I
Right.
think that's really important. Mark,
So
what year did you get into real estate?
me, I got in 1999.
Me as well. Interest rate was 7.44 when you and I
Yep.
got into real estate,
Yep.
which is higher than what it is today.
Yep. And I
And I
bought my
was
first house
selling
in
houses like
1997
it's
when it was
going
around
out of
7%.
style. Do what?
I bought my first house in 1997 and my interest rate was 7%.
Yeah. So here's the thing. In jeopardy of sounding like the guy that walked 10 miles in the snow and ice uphill the whole way to school.
Right.
The truth is, widen the perspective. I said it already. If I'm fearful of interest rates, I've got a really narrow perspective. But if I can find a way to widen my perspective, it
Mm-hmm.
actually gives me opportunity to feel normal, feel like I got opportunity in front of me. And
Right.
this is a how many years is that? 50-year widened perspective around mortgage rates.
Right.
We look pretty doggone good.
Yeah. Well, it's hard when you've just seen interest rates in the twos. It's hard to be happy about anything over three, frankly. But the only reason it was in the twos is because twos and threes is because of COVID, right? So
Yeah.
that was intended to keep the economy moving while the world was shutting down.
Yep.
It's not ever gonna. Well, we may never see those kinds of rates again.
No, we may never, and hopefully we will. But we saw this steep climb, and that's what we're feeling.
Right.
And once it's going to level off. It's not going to keep climbing like this.
Hmm.
It will level off at some point, and then it'll start to feel normal again.
Right.
And just be on the front end of that, right?
Yeah.
All right, let me jump back over here to our articles.
While you're doing that, Brett, I just wanted
Yeah.
to comment on the slide you just showed. The biggest number of home sales in the 5 year period was that between 2002 and 2006. Yeah, on this one here. Look at the interest rates between 2002 and 2006 when that 5 year period was the largest number of homes ever sold in a 5 year period. And interest rates were between 6.9 or 6.5 and or 6.9 and 5 point something, 5.8. So, people still buy lots of homes when interest rates are that high. So I just
Sure.
want to underscore that these aren't the types of interest rates that keep people from buying homes. 17%, they still buy homes, but they have to come up with different ways to do it. A lot of owner financing.
Absolutely. All right, Mark. We've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
There's got a lot of investors buying inventory in Atlanta.
Yep.
And the only two ways to a government or anybody can combat that is either make government legal policy or HOAs go after it. Mm-hmm. It's really the only way to slow down investor-owned properties. Well, investor-owned housing emerging as a key issue for Metro Atlanta officials. We know from research that Atlanta is the center point in the country for iBuyers and investor-owned. I even read 13% of the sales went to an iBuyer or some kind of institutional money, which that's a chunk. That's a big chunk, right? So I'm not shocked that the government is getting involved in some kind of trying to peel back investors buying up a lot of the real estate. How do they do that? What do you think?
I mean, part of it is, pricing on the types of loans that, that are utilized by investors a lot. Part of it is looking at local ordinances and giving some guidance on local ordinances around investment property. The government can tax investors, which makes it less desirable for them to want to do that, especially if they're holding for a period of time. Because I think the biggest challenge we're seeing right now is these investors have held property versus like your mom and pop investors that buy a house and then after 6-7 years they go, okay, I'll go ahead and sell it now.
Yeah,
take my money and run. Corporations bundle them up and sell them as a fund, so they're not coming back on the market, which is why our housing inventory is so low. It's one of the contributing factors.
I remember one city I was looking at buying condominiums have done this forever. Like you can't rent them out. There's a lot of rental restrictions, right, things like that. But I remember a city that I wanted to buy a rent house in that said, if you're an investor in this city, you were mandated to have the house inspected annually and make necessary repairs.
Yep.
And which just deters investors, right? So I wouldn't be shocked in the next couple of years we start seeing some more legislation around investors in the city, because I think it's going to happen.
I think we're also going to see it more, and it's already starting to happen in the city of Atlanta, but the short-term rental, the Airbnb investor, those restrictions are coming. In California, when I lived there 10 years ago, they started cutting down on that because it was impacting neighborhoods and it was taking inventory off the market and things like that. So I think you're going to see more of that, and that'll cause a lot of people to sell those houses that they bought simply as an Airbnb investment.
Yeah, so we got two sides of the coin here. I think this is something important to understand, that too much investing can hurt home values long term. Right. But it's also the opportunity of now too. And Gary in the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book, this is kellerinc.com, really gives incredible advice on how to go after investment property. And he talks about creating that criteria that you use to evaluate any investment you're considering. I call that the buy box. Like, am I looking for a 4-bedroom under blankety blank price in this area, no garage conversion, no, whatever it is. What's my buy box? And then evaluate all investment opportunities with the same criteria. And then when the opportunity meets your criteria, you move fast. When I taught the Millionaire Real Estate Investor a year ago, I explained this analogy, Mark. Like, prior to dating, most people choose what's important to them in a significant other, right? Like, right. I care about these values, I don't care about these values, or I want them to be this kind of person or not this kind of person, whatever it is. They create their ideal scenario.
Right.
And the reason that's really important in the dating world is because once somebody falls in love, they'll waver on all their values. All bets are off, right?
Right.
It happens in real estate too, Mark. If I don't have my criteria defined on the front end, right, sometimes I might fall in love with a deal. And if I fall in love with a deal and I bent my criteria to try to make it work,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I lose. That's when I get burned, right?
Absolutely. And it's
And
not.
forgive my dating analogy, but it works.
Well, it's interesting because it's not, in a way, it's a lot like what we do with buyers today, right? Like we look at, okay, they're looking for a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, this much square footage with this kind of yard in these neighborhoods. Like it's just taking that sort of same kind of search criteria and applying it to yourself and to your investments so that you don't make an emotional decision, you make a strong financial decision.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important. And then obviously, he talks about buying rental property in this article and buying stocks. We can
Hmm.
get you copies of this article. It's pretty easy. I'll just pop it in the chat for now.
Cool.
Um, but the other article, Mark, is about understanding mortgages.
Hmm.
Why do we think this is such an important topic right now?
I mean, for me, I think people just need to understand the role that a rate plays in their purchasing power, whether it's positive or negative. They need to understand what that does and what how they can still move forward given what the rate environment is at any given time.
Sure. I also think there's different kinds of mortgages, um, understanding the terms and interest rates and
Yeah.
all the different things that move around inside of a mortgage. Here's the thing, this sounds so basic, but here's what I know, Mark. Like, I don't even think there was a lot of people buying government backed loans in the last 18 months because the inventory was so tight.
Right.
So how many real estate professionals hadn't done a government backed loan in 2 years
Right.
or ever, or adjustable rate mortgages? The last time these were really popular were in like 2010.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what percentage of the real estate community was not selling real estate in 2010? A
Right.
good chunk, a
It
good
just hadn't
chunk.
made sense in the past, 10, 12 years, but it does
No.
now as rates are going up.
There's another one that's not even in this article called an assumable mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
I've already heard of one coming.
Really?
I think there's more coming. But
Yeah.
here's the encouragement. It's a skills based market right now, and that sounds like a leadership term and a rally cry to go to class. But I promise you, just as transparent as I can, the people that take this professionally and go do the research, learn what they need to learn, know how to talk about it. They don't have to be an expert, but
Right.
they position themselves as a knowledgeable resource. They're going to thrive
Yeah.
going forward because it's confusing to a lot of people.
Well, excuse me, a realization I had about a year ago was that in my 23 years of real estate, I've never done a listing appointment, but I've almost never lost a listing that I've talked to someone about. I don't do a presentation. I just go and have a conversation. And if you talk to any high producing listing agent, they tell you that their number one tool going into a listing appointment is their market knowledge. Because if you can just talk confidently and knowledgeably about what's happening in the market, and you can point to numbers and statistics, then that's really all you need because people will see credibility in you and they'll listen to your advice. But if you don't demonstrate credibility, why would they list with you, right? So I think that it's really important to have that market knowledge now more than ever.
Absolutely. All right. So I sent you those two articles. The last thing is sometimes I feel like these headlines are like, duh. Like bidding wars on Atlanta homes decline in May as mortgage rates rise. Okay. I think
Uh-huh.
we agree. And do I need somebody to tell me that's true? Probably not.
Right.
However, I see this as opportunity, Mark.
Right.
And I think somebody would read that as a negative headline. I see that as opportunity. I've said it 1,000 times. I
Right.
think it's the difference of having to put $50,000 cash, which feels heavy, or a delta of 2% interest.
Right.
And I'd much rather pay a 2% interest, knowing I have an opportunity of refinancing it somewhere down the road and keep 50 grand in my pocket or a
Hmm.
100 grand or whatever it is, right?
Right.
Um, but some people, what would you say to somebody that thinks, oh man, the market is really slowed down? Because that's what I hear.
First, I would refer them back to that interest rate chart and let them know that like yes, it's slow compared to what it was the past 2 years, but any market in history would be slow compared to the last 2 years. So that's
Yeah.
number one. And number two is that real estate's hyper local. And even though this says that, the bidding wars are on Atlanta homes are declining in May, I can tell you I just helped someone buy a house in June. And we started in June, we ended in June, and we were $70,000 over list price. So it's very hyper local, and there's no one headline that covers all that.
There you go. Well, Mark, wrap us up. What do we need to know, pay attention to? What's talking point?
Yeah, I think right now, if anyone has a buyer, they should be going back to with their buyer and having a conversation with them and the buyer's lender to reevaluate what it is that they're looking for and revisit what their motivation is. Why are they looking to buy? And it may not make sense for them, but generally, it's the lender and your opportunity to show them how they can buy and meet their needs. So I think it's like a time to touch base and check in with every buyer you have. And sellers need to price ahead of the market. So it's better to price a little bit low than a little bit high right now.
There you go. I dropped the state of the industry slides in the chat, so I'll make sure we stay on for just a second. But Mark, I mean, you run a big organization in town. I'm sitting here in Midtown right now.
Mm-hmm.
It, is there a more important conversation than this one?
Not right now.
I just want to encourage everybody that's on this call. Great job for showing up. This, I think, is the most important conversation you should be engaged into right now and for the inevitable future. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being here. Industry update Mondays at 2:30.
Every week.
Rock and roll.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
Brett.